In a hotel restaurant in Nairobi, Kenya, Captain Oliver and co-pilot Sophia were dining together. After a long day of flying, they decided to relax by trying some local cuisine. The restaurant was dimly lit, and the air was filled with the aroma of spices. Sophia smiled as she recommended a signature stew to Oliver. Raising her glass, she proposed a toast, and the atmosphere was light and pleasant. However, not long after the meal, Oliver began to feel unwell. His brows furrowed slightly as he tried to hide his discomfort. "Maybe the food's a bit too rich," he muttered softly, reassuring himself with a sip of water. Sophia noticed his unease and asked with concern, "Oliver, are you okay?" Oliver shook his head lightly and smiled, saying, "It's nothing, probably just tiredness." But things didn't go as he hoped. Back in his hotel room, Oliver's condition worsened rapidly. Nausea, fever, and a cold sweat left him barely able to stand. When Sophia received Oliver's call for help, she quickly rushed to his room. She appeared genuinely worried, patting his shoulder gently and saying, "We need to get you to a hospital right away. You don't look good." Oliver nodded weakly, leaning against the wall for support. Sophia promptly hailed a taxi and accompanied the frail Oliver to a small hospital in Nairobi. She sat beside him in the car, offering soft words of comfort, her expression seemingly filled with concern. Oliver, too weak to think clearly, could only struggle to stay conscious. If you enjoy thrilling stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. More suspenseful tales await you. The taxi sped along and finally stopped at a slightly shabby hospital. Sophia helped the weak Oliver into the emergency room, her eyes showing worry, and she held his hand tightly all the time. The medical staff quickly took Oliver to the treatment room, began to measure vital signs and conduct preliminary examinations. Oliver was pale, his forehead was covered with cold sweat, and he lay on the examination bed with difficulty. The doctor injected him with a sedative to relieve his pain. Sophia stood aside, anxiously asking about the progress of the examination, and whispered to Oliver from time to time, "Don't worry, you will get better soon." Under the arrangement of the medical staff, Oliver was transferred to a quiet ward for further observation. At the same time, there was an unknown undercurrent surging inside the hospital. The secret organization Scarlet Mirage, hidden behind it, was operating quietly. They used the diagnosis and treatment of ordinary patients as a cover to conduct illegal experiments and intelligence transactions. Sophia is now a key link in this dark game. When Oliver was arranged for further treatment, a man in a white medical uniform quietly walked into the ward. His movements were skillful but with a sense of secrecy, and he replaced the needle originally used for treatment with a special medicine. Sophia stood at the door, glanced at the man with complicated eyes, and then turned away pretending to be unintentional, as if she had not noticed anything unusual. This special medicine does not bring direct poisoning, but a latent substance. It will revitalize the patient in a short time, but it will lay hidden dangers for future illness. Shortly after the injection, Oliver's symptoms were indeed relieved. He opened his eyes weakly and forced a grateful smile to Sophia. "Thank you for staying with me all the time." Sophia responded with a warm smile, but a hint of imperceptible coldness flashed in her eyes. She whispered, "Rest well. Everything will pass." Then she turned and left the ward, walked straight to another secret area of the hospital, and whispered a few words with a mysterious person. As night falls, the hospital returns to its apparent tranquility, but the hidden dangers buried in Oliver are like a time bomb that could explode at any time. This apparent tranquility hides countless unknown crises. After recovering from the hospital, Oliver tried to return to his daily work, but he soon found that his physical condition had not fully recovered. At first, he thought it was fatigue caused by accumulated fatigue, but after a few days, this feeling of weakness became more severe, even accompanied by intermittent fever and symptoms of decreased immunity. Suspicion gradually grew in his heart, and he decided to go to a private clinic for a comprehensive examination. The moment the test results came out, Oliver's world seemed to collapse in an instant. The doctor calmly told him that he was infected with HIV and the time was about the last week or two. Oliver sat stiffly in the chair, his ears buzzing, and his mind quickly replayed his experience in Kenya. He thought of the sudden discomfort that night, the doctors in the hospital, and those vaguely disturbing details, and most importantly, he thought of Sophia. Sophia's figure became clear in his memory. She was always by his side, with a kind and caring attitude, but the overly perfect performance made him feel uneasy now. He recalled her whispers when she talked privately with the medical staff that day, and the complex eyes that were vague when she watched him enter the ward. An ominous premonition gradually formed in Oliver's heart. Sophia may know more truth. However, he found it difficult to speak out this suspicion for a while. Sophia is his colleague and a long-term trusted partner. Rash accusations will make him seem unfounded. Moreover, Sophia seemed to have noticed his abnormality. From that day on, her words and deeds began to become subtle. She no longer took the initiative to mention the accident in Nairobi and rarely took the initiative to care about Oliver's health. On the contrary, whenever the topic touched on these things, she would cleverly divert, as if avoiding some in-depth discussions. Oliver did not expose it directly, but his vigilance in his heart had quietly increased. He began to secretly observe Sophia's actions, paying attention to whether she came into contact with suspicious people or showed any abnormalities. And Sophia also seemed cautious, and every time she looked at Oliver, there was some elusive emotion in her eyes. The relationship between the two people changed from being relaxed and casual to a silent psychological game. After a meeting, Sophia pretended to be concerned and asked Oliver, "Are you feeling better recently?" Oliver smiled and replied, "Still recovering, but I will be fine." Their conversation seemed calm on the surface, but every word seemed to hide a deeper meaning. This subtle confrontation kicked off unknowingly. The calm daily life became a facade to cover up the crisis, and the undercurrents continued to accumulate in the seemingly harmless exchanges waiting for a chance to explode. Oliver knew he had to get to the bottom of the matter. He began to investigate secretly, focusing on Sophia. In order not to alert the enemy, he frequently stayed in the company under the pretext of working overtime, checking Sophia's travel records and related work logs for the past few months. He also used his authority to access the flight database to track her travel information. Every slight anomaly was recorded by him. In the first few days, the investigation did not make any substantial progress, but an accidental discovery shocked him. Sophia had left the hotel many times while in Nairobi and did not return all night one night. What was even more puzzling was that her flight itinerary showed that she had visited a small town in Western Africa during a business trip, and that city was one of the bases of the secret organization Scarlet Mirage. This discovery added new support to his suspicion. After further digging, Oliver found clues in Sophia's emails. She had received an encrypted email with a very unfamiliar sender's address, and Sophia replied to the email on the second night of their hospitalization in Nairobi. Through technical means, Oliver cracked part of the email and found the name Scarlet Mirage and some obscure instructions. Although the content is not complete, these clues are enough to link Sophia to the organization. As the investigation deepened, Oliver's memory began to become clearer. He recalled that during dinner in Nairobi, Sophia had whispered with a waiter in the restaurant, and the waiter later served them personally. Even more disturbing was that in the hospital, before his condition suddenly worsened, Sophia offered to get him medicine and handed him a glass of water when she came back. The taste of the glass of water seemed to be a little different, but he didn't think much about it at the time. These fragmented clues gradually pieced together a disturbing truth. Sophia may be involved in a conspiracy against him, and the Scarlet Mirage involved behind it is a larger network. In order to further verify his guess, Oliver decided to collect evidence. He contacted his trusted private detective friend and asked him to help investigate Sophia's activities in Nairobi. A few days later, the information sent back by the detective completely shattered the last doubts. Sophia had indeed met with a person suspected of being a member of Scarlet Mirage, who was a senior doctor at a local private hospital. The evidence gradually improved, and Oliver had enough reason to confirm Sophia's involvement. He organized all the documents, photos, and records into archives and locked them in an encrypted USB drive. He knew that these evidences alone were not enough to directly reveal the truth, but they were an important weapon against Sophia and the forces behind her. Oliver decided to take action. He no longer deliberately concealed his suspicions, but began to deliberately test Sophia and observe her reaction. At the same time, he contacted an old friend who worked in the intelligence department and asked for help. He knew that a bigger confrontation was coming, and in this game, Sophia would never show weakness easily. This is a long-distance flight from Nairobi to London. Oliver and Sophia were arranged to sit in the same row of seats. There was an indescribable tension between the two. Shortly after takeoff, the lights in the cabin gradually dimmed, and the passengers began to relax or rest. But Oliver's heart was extremely clear. He knew that this would be the most critical moment between him and Sophia. "I think we need to talk." Oliver broke the silence, his voice low but with irresistible power. Sophia was slightly startled and then smiled calmly. "What? About work? Or your recent health problems?" Oliver looked directly into her eyes, took out a folder from his briefcase, and handed it to her. "I mean these, your plan, Scarlet Mirage, and why you did it." Sophia's face turned pale in an instant, but she still tried to remain calm and looked through the evidence in the folder. She smiled softly, with a hint of mockery in her tone. "Where did you get these things? What can these meaningless materials explain?" "Whether it can explain the problem, you know it in your heart." Oliver did not give in. "I know you tampered with the dinner. I know you colluded with the doctor in the hospital, and I even know why you participated in the Scarlet Mirage plan. Stop quibbling, Sophia." Sophia was silent for a moment, closed the folder, and pushed it back on the table. Her expression changed from stiff to indifferent, and there was a chilling calmness in her eyes. "Well, since you know everything, I have nothing to hide," she whispered. Her voice seemed to be without a trace of emotion. "Yes, I participated." Sophia leaned back in her seat and admitted in a cold tone, "But you know what? This is not the choice I want. The power of Scarlet Mirage is far beyond your imagination. I have no choice. If I don't obey, they will destroy my life, and even my family." Oliver clenched his fists on the table, and his knuckles turned white due to the force. "Why are you targeting me?" He lowered his voice, but his anger could no longer be concealed. "Targeting you?" Sophia laughed sarcastically. "Oliver, this is not targeting you. This is for survival. You are just a task, a target designated by them. As for why it is you, maybe it is because of your job, maybe it is because of your background, but these are not important." Oliver's anger was completely ignited by her indifference, but he quickly calmed down. He knew that every word now was crucial. "Do you think this is over? You are wrong, Sophia. I have submitted all the evidence to the senior management of the airline, and they will handle this matter. You will not get away with it." Sophia did not respond, but turned her head to look out the window. Her expression was complicated, but there was no regret. She seemed to have accepted the upcoming fate. After the flight arrived in London, airport security personnel and several airline representatives were waiting at the jet bridge. Sophia was asked to leave with them, and Oliver handed everything over to the judicial process. He knew that the contest had finally come to an end, but the scars left might never heal. Sophia was eventually sentenced to 10 years in prison in court and lost her flying license forever. When the gavel fell, cracks finally appeared in her cold shell. Prison life was monotonous and long, but it also gave her enough time to face her past. The choices and sacrifices made in the dark were replayed in her mind again and again, turning into waves of lingering pain. She began to realize that what she thought was no choice was just a compromise with fear, and all this ruined her originally beautiful life. On the other hand, Oliver walked out of the shadows. Although the physical damage was irreversible, he was unwilling to let the tragedy of the past define his life. He decided to turn pain into strength, joined several charity organizations, and became a spokesperson for HIV patients. He used his story to warn others and strive for more understanding and support for those who struggled with discrimination and disease. He gradually discovered that helping others not only rekindled hope in his life, but also gave new meaning to his future. Although Sophia and Oliver's fate had long parted ways, their story has become a profound warning. When facing darkness, whether to choose to compromise or stick to the bottom line, every decision may change your life. And because of those choices, their lives began a completely different new chapter.